The twin moons of Salenthi floated above the royal palace like pale lanterns, watching silently over the sleeping city below. From her high balcony, Princess Liara stood alone, her hands resting on the cold silver railing. The night wind brushed against her long white hair, and the shimmering lights of the capital reflected in her tearful eyes. She looked like a sculpture carved from starlight, beautiful but lonely. Liara was young by Calenthi standards, only 60 cycles old, barely a youth for her kind. But already the galaxy knew her name for the wrong reasons. She was the princess no one wanted, the one every suitor rejected. For months the royal court had hosted the finest suitors from every corner of the galaxy. Warriors from the Zenthrax, princes from the Elari, scholars from the crystalline Aurum. They all came in grand ships that painted the sky with color, stepping into the shining halls of the Silver Citadel to meet her. And yet every one of them left the same way, with polite excuses, cold smiles, and eyes that held judgment. She is too emotional, they said. She weeps when she should remain calm. She smiles too easily. She feels too much. To them, emotion was weakness. The Salenthi were known for their calm logic, their flawless beauty, and their icy composure. They valued silence over laughter, precision over passion. But Liara was different. She loved music. She spoke kindly to servants. She wept for wounded creatures, and she dreamed of the stars not as places to conquer, but as lights to befriend. In her world, such softness was a flaw. Tonight her chamber doors opened softly. Her handmaiden, a gentle being named Tiri, entered with quiet steps. "Your Highness," Tiri whispered, bowing. "The council has ended another meeting. They could not find a match." Liara smiled faintly, though her heart cracked a little more. "I expected as much," she said, her voice like music fading in the wind. Tiri hesitated before speaking again. "There are whispers, my lady. Some say the Emperor may call off the search. They say it brings shame." The princess turned her gaze toward the stars again. "Shame," she repeated softly, as if testing the word on her tongue. How strange. To feel deeply is a shame, yet to feel nothing at all is pride. She looked down at her silver hands, trembling slightly. "Tell me, Tiri, which is truly worse?" The handmaiden lowered her head. "I do not know, my princess, but I know you have a heart unlike any other. And maybe that is not a curse." Liara smiled sadly. "The galaxy disagrees." The sound of her own voice echoed through the empty balcony. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Only the wind answered, carrying the distant hum of starships leaving orbit. Yet another suitor flying away. When Tiri left, Liara stayed behind, staring at the stars until her eyes burned. Each one shimmered like a tiny tear in the fabric of heaven. "Why?" she whispered to the silent sky. "Is it wrong to feel?" Her question went unanswered. The next morning the court gathered again, not for celebration but for shame. The Emperor, her father, sat upon his crystal throne, his expression carved in stone. Around him the council murmured. "She brings weakness," said one. "No, race will respect our bloodline if she remains unbonded," said another. "She is an embarrassment," hissed a third. Liara stood before them in silence, her heart pounding. The words hit her like blades, each one cutting deeper than the last. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her father raised a hand. "That is enough," the Emperor said. His voice was calm, but there was sorrow hidden beneath it. "My daughter will not be forced to wed those who do not see her worth." The court fell silent. But Liara knew what he truly meant. He was tired. Tired of defending her. Tired of hearing her name become a joke among the stars. That night she sat by her window again, watching the ships come and go, the lights flashing like tiny heartbeats. Her reflection stared back at her, pale, perfect, and lonely. She felt like a ghost living in a golden cage. In the quiet of her room, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I was never meant to be loved, but somewhere out there, beyond the silver clouds and endless stars, a small blue planet turned slowly in the dark. On that world lived creatures who cried, laughed, fought, and loved with every piece of their fragile hearts. And one of them, though she did not yet know it, was already traveling toward her destiny. A human, a being who would change everything." 3 weeks had passed since the council had quietly ended the search for Princess Liara's suitor. The palace halls, once filled with visiting nobles, were now silent. Empty docking bays stretched like open wounds in the shining city. Liara no longer attended the grand dinners or music gatherings. She spent her days walking through the crystal gardens, speaking only to the flowers and the stars. Her laughter, once warm and alive, had become rare, a memory. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. One morning, the royal guards announced the arrival of a small, unfamiliar vessel. It was not one of the great Star-Lord's ships nor a craft from any noble race. It was plain, gray, a little worn, and clearly human-made. The courtiers laughed. A Terran ship? Surely a mistake, one said. Humans are primitive, said another. They cannot even breathe our air without help. Still, the Emperor ordered that the visitor be allowed to speak. The Empire prided itself on diplomacy, even with lesser species. When the palace gates opened, a man stepped through. He was tall for a human, with short brown hair and a faint scar across his cheek. His uniform was simple, dark blue with a silver emblem of Earth upon the shoulder. His eyes, however, were what caught everyone's attention. Calm, steady, and full of quiet strength. He bowed, not with the floating gesture of the Calenthe, but by bending his knees and lowering his head. The court gasped. Such a gesture was considered primitive here. But the human didn't seem ashamed. I am Commander Elias Ward, he said in a clear voice, representative of Earth and its colonies. I come bearing respect from humanity. The Emperor nodded, slightly hiding his curiosity. Welcome to Calenthe, Commander. We were not expecting visitors from your world. Elias smiled faintly. Sometimes the unexpected is what brings change, the courtiers whispered among themselves. His words were bold, too bold. Yet there was something different about him. He did not seem afraid nor proud, just honest. Liara, sitting beside her father, watched him closely. There was a warmth in his tone she hadn't heard from any suitor before. Every alien who came before had spoken in cold, rehearsed words, but this man spoke as if he truly meant what he said. The Emperor asked politely, "And what business brings you before our court?" The human's eyes flickered toward Liara, though just for a moment. I heard of your princess, he said, and of her situation. The court stiffened. Several voices hissed, "He dares!" But Elias continued calmly. On my world, we do not believe emotion is weakness. We believe it is proof of life. So when I heard that she was shunned for feeling too much, I thought perhaps someone should come forward not to mock her but to meet her as an equal. A deep silence filled the chamber. Even the humming crystals on the walls seemed to hold their breath. Then one of the counselors laughed sharply. You think yourself worthy of our princess? A human. Elias looked at him and said simply, I think worth is not something you're born with. It's something you prove. The laughter faded. His words echoed through the hall like quiet thunder. The Emperor studied him for a long time. Then, with a slow nod, he said, Very well, Commander Ward, you may speak with the princess and was a guest of the Empire. Liara rose to her feet. Her silver gown shimmered softly as she stepped down the stairs. Her heart pounded. For the first time in years, curiosity sparkled in her eyes. When she stood before him, she saw no arrogance, no fear, only warmth. The man bowed again, awkwardly but sincerely. Your Highness, he said, it's an honor to meet someone who dares to feel in a world that's forgotten how. Liara's breath caught. For a moment she forgot where she was. Forgot the watching eyes, the cold stares of the council. The only thing she saw was this strange creature before her, speaking words no alien had ever spoken to her. She smiled, not the practiced royal smile, but a real one. Then perhaps, she whispered, we are both out of place in this galaxy. Elias smiled back. Maybe that's why we found each other. The court murmured again, confused and scandalized. But Liara didn't care. For the first time, she felt something new. Hope. Later that evening, as the stars glittered beyond the palace domes, Liara stood by her window once more. Below her, she saw the human walking in the gardens, looking up at the twin moons in quiet wonder. Something in her chest stirred. The feeling was small, fragile, but alive. She didn't know if it was friendship, curiosity, or something deeper. But she knew one thing for certain. The man from Earth was different. And for the first time in her long life, the princess who was shunned by all felt that maybe, just maybe, she was about to be chosen. The Garden of Starlight was the most sacred place in the Silver Citadel. Silver flowers hummed softly when touched, and luminous vines twisted along crystal walls, spilling gentle light like falling stars. No courtly advisor or alien noble ever wandered there without purpose, but today it was quiet. Empty except for the princess and the human who had changed her life in just one day. Liara descended the marble steps, her silver gown gliding over the soft, luminescent floor. Her heart fluttered nervously. The court had allowed this meeting, not as an official audience, but as a gesture of respect. And yet every step felt like walking into the unknown. Elias stood in the center of the garden, his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the silver blossoms as if he had never seen anything like them. When he noticed her, he straightened and bowed slightly, a gesture still awkward but genuine. "Princess Liara," he said, voice calm, almost hesitant. "It's an honor to meet you here." Liara smiled faintly. "I've walked these gardens many times," she said softly. "Yet today, it feels different." Elias tilted his head. "Different how?" She hesitated. No one had asked that before. No alien had ever asked how she felt. They only demanded, judged, or rejected. I feel lighter," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Perhaps because I am not being watched, not being measured, not being tested." Elias nodded as if he understood completely. "On my world, we call that freedom. It's rare, even for us humans." Liara looked at him curiously. "Freedom? You speak as if you understand hearts." "I try," he said simply. "I cannot claim to understand everything about your world, your people, or your life, but I can listen. And sometimes listening is the first step toward understanding." She studied him. His brown eyes were steady, warm, alive. No alien had ever looked at her like that. They looked at her silver skin, her royal bearing, her position. But he looked at her. Her. For a long moment, silence fell between them, only the gentle hum of the flowers filling the space. Then Liara asked softly, "Why would a human come so far from home to meet a princess who has been rejected by the galaxy?" Elias smiled faintly, shrugging. "Because someone had to. And because maybe someone needed to remind the galaxy that feeling is not weakness." The word struck her, so simple yet so bold. She had been told all her life that her heart was a flaw, her tears a mark of shame. And now this stranger told her, quietly, firmly, that it was strength. Liara walked closer, her gown brushing the luminous petals. "You are not afraid of me?" she asked. "Afraid?" Elias echoed. "Why would I be? I see you, princess. I see your heart, and it is larger than any fear I could imagine." Her chest tightened. His words felt like warmth flowing into a place long frozen. She had been lonely for decades in the midst of grandeur. And yet here was a human, small, fragile by Kalenthi standards, yet stronger than anyone she had ever known. She dared to smile fully for the first time in months. "No one has ever spoken to me this way." Elias took a cautious step forward. "Then maybe I will continue speaking until someone finally does." They began to walk through the winding paths, moving slowly beneath arches of glowing vines. Liara spoke of her childhood, of her love for music, of the nights she had cried in silence. Elias listened, never interrupting, never judging. He asked gentle questions, and when she stumbled on her words, he laughed softly, not mockingly, but with encouragement, and then, unexpectedly, he told her about Earth. He spoke of oceans that roared, of forests that breathed, of skies that bled colors at sunrise. He spoke of humans who lived short lives, yet loved fiercely, laughed loudly, and cried without shame. Liara's golden eyes widened. "You live in such chaos, yet you call it life." "Yes," Elias said, "because life is meant to be felt. Every joy, every sorrow, every fear, every hope. Even the things that scare us the most." For the first time, Liara understood. There was bravery not only in battle, not only in logic, but in feeling, in letting oneself be vulnerable, even in a galaxy that valued perfection above all. As they walked, their hands brushed lightly. Neither withdrew. It was a tiny, almost accidental gesture, yet it sent warmth rushing through her veins. For centuries she had been shunned, avoided, and mocked. Yet here, in the glow of silver flowers, under alien stars, beside a human who saw her, she felt safe. That night, when the court called her back, Liara lingered a moment longer, watching him leave. Her heart whispered something she had not dared to admit. Maybe, just maybe, a human could understand her in a way the entire galaxy could not. And in that quiet, magical garden, the first seeds of something extraordinary began to grow. A bond that would challenge 1,000 years of tradition, and a love that would shake the stars themselves. News spread through the galaxy faster than any starship could fly. A human, a fragile, short-lived creature from a small blue planet, had dared to walk beside Princess Liara in the sacred garden of starlight. The whispers began softly, then grew into storms of laughter, scorn, and disbelief. Humans? They are barely sentient, one noble sneered in the grand halls of the Calenti citadel. She cannot marry one of them, another hissed. Think of the shame it would bring to the bloodline. The princess is lost, a third whispered, shaking his crystalline head. The Empire will never recover from this disgrace. Even distant star systems caught wind of the scandal. News vessels carried tales of the princess who chose a human across light years, sparking ridicule, gossip, and outright derision. Inside the Silver Citadel, the court was tense. Advisors whispered, glared, and gestured at Liara behind her back. But she noticed none of it as she walked down the palace corridors, her silver gown swaying like liquid moonlight. She was focused on one thought. Elias, her father, the emperor, called her to the throne room. The crystal dais gleamed under the twin suns, reflecting his stern, unwavering gaze. Liara, he began, voice low but heavy with centuries of authority. I have heard the news. Yes, father, she said, keeping her voice calm, but her hands trembled slightly, betraying the fear that twisted in her chest. You have allowed a human into your life, a creature who is not of our stars, not of our people, one who cannot even endure our environment without aid. Do you not see the danger? I see the danger, she admitted, stepping closer. And yet I also see something you cannot, a heart that does not judge me for feeling, for caring, for being myself. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You speak boldly. This is not a game, daughter. Your actions affect the Empire, our alliances, our legacy. Liara's chest tightened. She had been taught obedience, tradition, perfection, and yet the human had shown her something she had never known. Courage without expectation. He had not come for power, not for glory, but simply to stand beside her. Father, she said, her voice rising, all my life I have been told that my heart is a flaw, that my tears are shameful, that my laughter is childish, and still no alien suitor has ever stayed. But this human, he does not see weakness in me. He sees me as I am, and for the first time I feel free. The court murmured in shock. Some gasped at her boldness. Others rolled their multifaceted eyes in disdain. The Emperor's expression softened, just a fraction, barely visible. And you would defy every tradition, every alliance, every expectation. For a human? Yes, she said simply. Because emotion is strength, and because courage is not measured by bloodline but by the heart. A silence fell across the throne room. Even the crystalline walls seemed to hum quietly, holding their breath as history teetered on a single choice. Then, the counselors erupted in outrage. She will ruin us, one shouted. She is a child playing at rebellion, another bellowed. She brings shame upon the Empire. Liara did not flinch. Instead, she raised her chin higher, her silver hair falling like a halo around her face. Perhaps, she said, voice steady and strong, but I would rather live with truth in my heart than lie to satisfy the cold pride of the stars. The Emperor's gaze softened further. He did not speak immediately. He let her words sink into the room, let the weight of courage fall like a hammer on centuries of tradition. Finally, he said, quietly, almost to himself, I have protected you for too long. Perhaps it is time you protect yourself. Liara's heart leapt. For the first time, the chains of expectation felt slightly lighter, yet there was still fear. The galaxy was vast, and she knew the mockery would not end. That night, she stood again in the garden of starlight, alone. Silver flowers swayed gently in the artificial wind as if whispering encouragement. She thought of Elias walking through the human streets of a distant blue planet, daring to come all this way just to be near her. Her chest ached with longing. 1,000 doubts swirled. What would the galaxy say? What would the council do? Could a human and a Calenti ever truly be together? And yet she smiled. For the first time in decades, she felt alive. Fear and doubt still lingered, but alongside them bloomed something far stronger. Hope. The human had dared. He had defied stars, tradition, and logic, and he had looked at her, not as a prize, not as a jewel, but as a being with a heart worth seeing. Liara whispered to the night sky, silver eyes glimmering in starlight. If he dares to stand for me, then I will dare to stand for him, no matter what the galaxy says. Somewhere in the void beyond the palace, a human ship sailed silently toward her world, and with it, a story that would soon make the entire empire question what truly mattered. Strength, tradition, or the courage to love. Weeks passed since the scandal in the court, and the empire was a storm of whispers, accusations, and judgment. Princess Liara had grown accustomed to the cold stares of nobles and the endless gossip of distant star systems. Every day felt heavier, as if the weight of the galaxy pressed against her chest. Yet she refused to shrink. She refused to hide. Then one morning, the palace gates opened again, not with the formal procession of alien diplomats, but with the steady, determined steps of a human, Commander Elias Ward. He walked alone, his boots making firm impressions in the silver floor, his uniform neat but simple. Behind him were no massive warships, no armies, no fanfare, just a man who had traveled light years for one purpose, to defend a princess who had been shunned by every being in the stars. The court erupted in outrage. "He has returned," shouted one counselor. "This human dares to defy us again. He seeks to claim the princess," hissed another. "Expel him! Throw him into the void." But the emperor did not rise in anger. He observed quietly, his sharp eyes studying Elias. The human, sensing the storm around him, stepped forward boldly, his voice carrying through the crystal chamber. "I am not here to take anything," he said. "I am here to speak for someone who cannot be silenced, someone who has been judged for having a heart." The courtiers laughed, cruel and sharp, but Elias did not waver. His gaze met Liara's across the room. It was steady, unwavering, and full of quiet fire. "You call her weak for feeling," he said, turning to the council. "You call her foolish for caring, for laughing, for loving. But do you know what true strength is? True strength is standing tall when the galaxy mocks you. True strength is defending those you care for, even when no one else will, and that is what I have come to do." The hall fell silent. Even the murmuring crystals seemed to hush, as if the universe itself were listening. Liara's heart beat so fast she could feel it in her throat. No alien had ever dared speak in such a way before. They measured strength in armies, in wealth, in power, but he spoke of courage born of the heart. That courage she had known all her life, but had been told it was weakness. "Commander Ward," the Emperor said finally, his voice low, cautious. "Do you understand the customs, the expectations, the consequences of your actions? One wrong step and you could doom this empire." "I do," Elias replied calmly, "and I choose to take that risk. Because some things are worth more than fear. Because one life, one heart is worth standing up for, even against the stars themselves." Liara felt tears well in her golden eyes. She had never heard such honesty, such bravery, such unwavering devotion, and yet she was terrified. If he failed, if the empire rejected him entirely, she would lose him, and perhaps lose herself in the process. Elias took a step closer to the dais, and though the distance was vast, his voice carried across the chamber. "Princess Liara is not a flaw. She is not a weakness. She is a light in a galaxy that has forgotten how to see, and I will not let her be silenced by fear, tradition, or ridicule." For a moment, the Emperor and Council exchanged looks. Then one of the elder advisors, a being of sharp crystal wings and hollow eyes, spoke. "And what of his kind? Humans are fragile. They are short-lived, they are emotional, they are temporary. How can you trust them with a princess?" Elias met the gaze of the elder unflinching. "Because humans know how to fight for what is right. We fight not because we are immortal, not because we are flawless, but because we care. And care is more powerful than any blade, more enduring than any law, more dangerous than any army. Because care changes hearts." The chamber fell into a deep, reverent silence. The counselors had no words. Even the Emperor's hands resting on his crystalline staff trembled slightly. Liara rose from her seat, moving gracefully toward the human. Her silver gown shimmered in the soft lights, reflecting the glow of the twin suns. "You speak the truth," she said softly but with fire in her voice. "And for the first time someone has spoken for me when I could not speak for myself." Elias extended his hand, just slightly. Not a gesture of power, not a claim, but an invitation. Liara's fingers trembled as they hovered over his. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The court gasped. The human and the princess stood together, hands clasped, eyes locked, hearts aligned. No words could fully describe the courage, the hope, the defiance in that moment. For the first time, the galaxy saw that strength was not in perfection, but in the heart, and that even a human, small and fragile by alien standards, could challenge an empire with nothing but bravery, love, and unwavering loyalty. That day, the story of the human and the princess began to echo across star systems, a tale that would inspire countless beings to question what truly mattered: bloodline, tradition, or the courage to stand for what is right. And Princess Liara, once shunned by all alien suitors, finally felt the power of being seen by someone who dared to love her as she truly was. The night sky above the silver citadel was vast, painted with stars that twinkled like distant jewels. Princess Liara stood at the edge of the balcony, silver robes flowing in the gentle wind. Her heart felt like a storm, hope, fear, excitement, and doubt all fighting within her chest. For the first time in her life, she was faced with a choice entirely of her own making. The court had not forgiven her. Whispers of mockery and outrage still echoed through the crystal halls. Alien nobles avoided her gaze, and even some of the emperor's closest advisors shook their heads in disbelief. Yet she did not care. She had seen something greater than ridicule or fear. She had seen courage, human courage, and it had changed her life. Behind her, the doors opened. Elias entered quietly, his uniform crisp, eyes steady and kind. He approached without ceremony, yet his presence carried a strength that could quiet an entire hall. "You've come," Liara said softly, her voice trembling yet firm. "I promised I would," Elias replied. "No matter what the galaxy says, no matter what your court says, I would come. Because I see you, and seeing you, it makes every risk worth taking." Liara took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind inside her. "Father summoned me today," she said, glancing at the distant throne room. "He asked me if I understand the consequences of my choice. The Empire, the alliances, the expectations, everything could change because of what I decide." Elias nodded slowly. "I know. But I also know that living for others' expectations is a life half-lived. You are more than what they say you should be. You are Liara, with a heart that beats fiercely and a soul that refuses to bow to cold tradition." Her chest tightened. No alien had ever spoken to her this way. They had judged her, rejected her, dismissed her. And now, standing beside this human who had crossed countless light years to reach her, she felt seen for the first time. Truly seen. The Emperor's voice echoed through the palace, carried by the silent communication devices hidden in the walls. "Daughter, tell me, what is it you desire?" Liara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the wind brush against her silver hair, the hum of the crystal walls, the faint pulse of the stars. She thought of every suitor who had turned her away, every whisper that had made her doubt herself, and every lonely night spent wishing someone could see her heart. "I desire to live," she said finally, her voice steady and clear. "Not as an ornament, not as a tool for the Empire, not as a reflection of others' expectations. I desire to live as I am, to feel, to love, and to be loved for who I truly am." The words hung in the air like a melody, soft yet powerful. The court fell silent. Even the Emperor's stern features softened as he listened. "And this human," he said, his voice heavy with centuries of tradition, "is he worthy of this choice?" Liara opened her eyes, golden orbs shining with conviction. "It is not about worthiness. It is about truth. He sees me. He understands what no alien has ever understood. And for that, he is more than worthy." Elias stepped closer, bowing his head slightly, not in submission but in respect. "Princess Liara, I do not claim to be perfect. I come from a fragile world and I am small compared to the stars. But I promise this, I will stand beside you, protect you, and honor you as long as I live." Liara felt tears well in her eyes. She had never imagined that someone could care so deeply, so purely, without expecting anything but honesty in return. She reached for his hand, letting her fingers intertwine with his. The warmth of human skin against her silver hand sent shivers through her. "I choose you," she said, voice breaking slightly with emotion. "Not for power, not for comfort, not for tradition. I choose you because you have shown me courage, honesty, and love, the things I have longed for my entire life." The Emperor's face softened completely. After a long pause, he said quietly, "Then it shall be as you wish. You may follow your heart." Liara's chest lifted, a weight lifting from her shoulders. Around her, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if the galaxy itself had noticed her choice. The court, though still tense, remained silent, for even they could not deny the bravery of a princess who chose love over fear. Elias smiled gently, squeezing her hand. "You have changed the stars tonight," he said softly. Liara looked up at him, her golden eyes glimmering with tears and joy. "No," she whispered, "you have changed me." And in that moment, in the quiet balcony beneath twin moons and endless stars, the princess who had once been shunned by all found her courage, her voice, and her heart. She had chosen love over tradition, truth over fear, and in doing so, she had begun a story that would be told across the galaxy for generations to come. The day of the union arrived quietly, yet the palace was filled with anticipation. Word had spread across the empire and beyond. The princess who had been shunned by all alien suitors had chosen a human. Some called it scandalous, some absurd, but others whispered with awe and hope. Princess Liara stood at the edge of the Garden of Starlight, the silver light of the twin moons reflecting softly in her hair. Her gown shimmered like liquid moonlight, flowing over the luminescent petals beneath her feet. Her heart raced, but this time it was not with fear. It was with certainty, with joy, with the raw, unstoppable force of love. Elias approached, tall and steady, his uniform simple but dignified. His eyes met hers, and the world seemed to narrow until there was nothing left but them. The stars above seemed to pause. The silver flowers swayed as if leaning closer, and the hum of the garden vibrated with quiet approval. "You are radiant," he said softly, voice full of wonder. Liara smiled, her chest lifting with the emotion she had spent years hiding. "And you are brave," she replied. "More than anyone I've ever met." There was no need for grand speeches or elaborate ceremonies. The empire, the galaxy, even the distant stars themselves seemed to watch silently as they stood together. The Emperor, sitting quietly on his crystal throne, nodded once almost imperceptibly, a gesture of acceptance that carried more weight than any law or decree. Elias extended his hand, and Liara took it without hesitation. Their fingers intertwined, silver and human skin meeting, warmth bridging the distance between worlds. The moment was simple, yet it carried the gravity of centuries of tradition, expectation, and prejudice, all fading away in the presence of courage and love. "Do you, Princess Liara, take this human to stand beside you, to share your joys and burdens, to face the galaxy together?" The High Consul's voice echoed softly, formal yet reverent. "I do," Liara said, her voice steady, shining with conviction. "Not for duty, not for tradition, not for appearances, but because he sees me as I truly am, and I see him in the same light. And do you, Commander Elias Ward, accept this princess, not as a prize, not as a symbol, but as a partner, a confidant, and a heart to cherish?" "I do," Elias replied, his voice strong yet gentle. "And I promise to protect her, honor her, and stand beside her in all things for as long as I live." A soft light radiated from the flowers around them, and the twin moons glimmered brighter, as if the universe itself celebrated their union. Courtiers whispered in awe, some still skeptical, yet unable to deny the truth before them. Love, courage, and empathy were stronger than prejudice, stronger than centuries of cold tradition. Liara looked up at Elias, golden eyes glimmering with tears and laughter intertwined. "You have crossed the stars for me," she whispered. "Yet it feels as if you have always been here." "And I always will be," he said, holding her hand tighter. "No matter what the galaxy thinks, no matter the distance or the danger, I am here. With you." The union was sealed with no need for fanfare. A gentle touch, a shared glance, a promise spoken in the quiet language of hearts. The story of the human and the princess would ripple across systems, challenging every notion of strength, love, and what it meant to truly see another being. When they walked through the palace gardens afterward, hand in hand, the air felt lighter. Aliens and humans alike paused to watch, some with judgment, some with curiosity, and some with tears of quiet wonder. For even in a galaxy that valued perfection above all, they could see that true greatness was found in courage, empathy, and the willingness to fight for what mattered most. Liara and Elias paused beneath the tallest silver tree, petals glowing softly around them. She leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of human skin, the steady heartbeat that had defied countless light years to reach her. "You have changed my world," she whispered. "No," he replied softly. "You have changed mine." And in that moment, under the twin suns and starlit skies, the galaxy understood a truth that would be remembered for ages. A human heart, fragile yet unyielding, could stand against the weight of stars and the judgment of centuries. It could teach an empire to feel, to hope, and to embrace the beauty of imperfection. The princess who had once been shunned, and the human who dared to see her, walked forward together. Their hands clasped, their hearts aligned, their love radiant, a legend born not of bloodlines or power, but of courage, empathy, and the simple, undeniable truth that love, above all, was worth the risk. And so, under two suns and countless stars, a story began that the galaxy would tell forever, the tale of the princess and the human, a love that changed worlds and reminded every being that even in a universe ruled by reason and pride, the heart was the strongest force of all.